Henry. People say a name reflects a person, but I've lived a life fitting for my ordinary name, nothing extraordinary. Perhaps the one saving grace is having my dear wife, the most important person in my life. My wife, Emily, was diagnosed with dementia by our family doctor. I met my wife decades ago, a memory now far in the past. Our marriage was what you'd call an arranged marriage. The first time we met was at a matchmaking session set up by our parents. Young people today might find it unbelievable, but arranged marriages like ours were quite common in our era. "Where are we going today, Mr. Johnson?" I almost reminded my wife that she's a Johnson too, but I swallowed my words, watching her joyful expression. When the doctor first diagnosed her, I was shaken and terrified. Dementia can't be cured, only its progression can be slowed. I was scared that she would gradually become someone other than the Emily I knew. But even now, Emily is still here, her innocent laughter, reminiscent of our younger days, dazzlingly bright to me. "Let's go somewhere a bit further today." As I took her hand and stood up, my bones creaked. Though I no longer have the youthfulness of those days, my heart still races a bit when I hold her hand. We held hands and boarded an express train, heading towards our destination. The train is quiet and calm during weekday afternoons, with few passengers. As the train moved away from the city, the scenery changed, with more greenery appearing. While the scenery brought back nostalgia, the thought of what lied ahead excited me. "I'm feeling really excited," she said. Between the train's rhythmic movements, Emily said exactly what I was thinking. Looking at her, I saw a childlike smile. "Is this your first time seeing this scenery?" Asking with a faint hope, I watched her ponder before nodding in response. "I see." Even though I knew she wouldn't remember, the realization brought a poignant mix of sadness and loneliness. Our family doctor said that dementia symptoms vary from person to person, and some may lose their most precious memories. If that's true, this scenery might have been very special to Emily. It could have been a memory she didn't want to forget. Thinking this way somehow settled my heart. Yet, I still wished she could remember. As I was regretting my question, Emily softly murmured, "Even though it's supposed to be my first time seeing this, it makes me feel so warm inside. Probably because I'm with you, Mr. Johnson." Seeing the wrinkles around her eyes stretch with her smile made my regrets seem to disappear. When we got off the train, we could see a high mountain in the distance. Then, we took a bus deep into the forest, arriving at a hotel surrounded by trees. We finally made it. Standing in front of the hotel, named Green Mountain, my hands trembled, maybe from nervousness. It seemed Emily felt the same way. "Why do I feel so fluttery? Have we been here before? It's strange, I don't remember, but it feels familiar," she wondered, tilting her head. I simply smiled back, saying nothing. I wanted to tell her that we had been here before and what this place means to us. But I didn't want to force her to remember. Even if she can recall, if today becomes a good memory, that would make me happy. "Shall we go inside?" Taking Emily's hand, we started walking. "May I have the name on the reservation?" "It's Henry Johnson." As we opened the hotel's door, an elderly man in a deep blue suit stood there. The wrinkles at the corners of his eyes when he smiled seemed to embody his kindness. Noticing a pin badge on his chest, I read the name James Blue and the title manager. "This gentleman is the manager." He seems as calm as the hotel's atmosphere itself. While I was lost in thought, the manager, Mr. Blue, let out a quiet sound, as if noticing something. Looking beside me, Emily seemed to not have heard him and maintained an indifferent expression. I wondered what that was about. For a moment, I was curious, but Mr. Blue soon returned to his smile, so I decided not to worry about it. "Everything is in order. Let me show you to your room," he said. We followed Mr. Blue. We were led to a room called Aurora, the most expensive room in the hotel. "This room is lovely, Mr. Johnson." As we entered, there was a large window overlooking a courtyard. Emily rushed to the window. Her eyes sparkled as she gazed at the view. The courtyard was filled with a variety of blooming flowers, and it was clear from just a glance that they were well maintained. The garden was renowned for its breathtaking beauty. The hotel was designed so the courtyard was visible from everywhere, but this Aurora room reportedly offered the most beautiful view of the garden. A spacious, open French-style room with a fantastic view. I was glad we chose this room. "The flowers are so beautiful," Emily commented. Emily has always loved flowers. I remember learning about this passion of hers during our matchmaking meeting. The garden at the place where our matchmaking was held was also quite beautiful. Back then, I knew only basic flower names like sunflowers and lilies, but she taught me about various others. I was so happy about that, so after several dates, when I decided to propose, I arranged for a bouquet of 100 roses at the restaurant in this hotel that had the stunning view we were seeing now. There was a scene like this in a movie I saw around that time, and thinking it was a great idea, I decided to emulate it. "Will you marry me?" As I presented the bouquet of 100 roses, Emily looked at me with wide eyes. Was that too cheesy? As I regained my composure, I suddenly felt embarrassed, my face probably as red as the roses at that moment. In an arranged marriage like ours, such a proposal wasn't typical. Emily, looking surprised and motionless, made me worry she thought I was odd, but then she softly laughed. "Thank you, Henry. I've never received such a wonderful gift. Of course, I'll marry you." From that day, we officially became husband and wife. Thinking back to those times, I couldn't help but smile. Although our skin, the wrinkles on our hands, and our bent backs have changed a lot since then. But the feelings I had when I was with Emily remained the same. She was happily gazing out the window. "I'm glad we came here," I said, watching her from behind. As we relaxed in the room, dinner time arrived before we knew it. The meal, using plenty of local vegetables and fish, was truly delicious. "Since we're here, how about we have a drink together?" I awkwardly suggested after dinner, and Emily nodded. "The dinner was really tasty," she said. She was touching her slightly flushed cheek with a smile. We enjoyed a rare drink together, slowly conversing. "Don't drink too much, Mr. Johnson. You're not good with alcohol," she teased as we enjoyed the leisurely time. "I thought it was you who couldn't handle your alcohol. Neither of us usually drank, but we always ordered a little when we were dining out." Emily would always get tipsy after just one drink. Her face was quite red now. Probably she already felt the effects, but her response was unexpected. "I get red-faced quickly when I drink, but that doesn't mean I'm weak," she claims. "What, really?" I was completely unaware of this. Surprised, I asked again, and Emily, a bit embarrassed, averted her gaze. "I thought appearing weak with alcohol would make me look cuter. I was just pretending." Her words, like a petulant young girl, made me laugh out loud. "I can never win against you, Emily," I said. We called it a night around 8 p.m. With the alcohol having worn off, Emily decided to use the open-air bath provided in the room. "An open-air bath, Mr. Johnson. How wonderful." I smiled again, recalling her excitement as she reported to me before heading to the bath. "I'm glad she's enjoying it," I said, taking a sip of warm tea, and sighed contentedly. This hotel was a famous, long-established place. Getting a reservation wasn't easy. But I wanted to stay here today, at this particular hotel. It had to be this hotel. I'm glad it's the same beautiful garden as back then. Even if Emily didn't remember, being able to show her the garden again was a joy for me. I took another sip of tea, and glanced at my bag occasionally while leisurely waiting for her to return. The bath was wonderful, Emily said, returning relaxed from the bath. Well then, I guess I'll go now. Hey, Mr. Johnson, when you go to the bath, make sure to look up first, she said with a smile as I prepared my towel and underwear. Why's that? I wondered if there was some folk remedy about looking up before entering a bath for health benefits. Curious, I asked her back, but Emily just smiled and didn't answer. Just make sure you look up first. It'll definitely make the bath more enjoyable, she insisted. Compelled by her words, I entered the open-air bath alone. This is amazing. As instructed, I looked up and immediately understood what Emily meant. The open space, the faint sound of crickets, but most thrilling was the star-filled sky visible through the gaps in the trees. Emily must have been referring to this starry sky. Such a sight was impossible to see in our town. Submerged up to my shoulders in the bath, I let out a sigh. Indeed, every part of this place is beautiful. Welcome back, Mr. Johnson. Returning to the room, I found Emily gazing out the window, sipping tea. It was really beautiful. I knew you'd like it, she said. Her face was lit up like a child who had succeeded in a prank. She's always loved beautiful things, unchanged since the past. Spending time like this reminded me of when we first met, and also how long we've been together, which felt wonderful. What should I make of this day? What would make Emily happy? I have been thinking about this for our wedding anniversary. Would you spend the rest of your life with me? I took out a small black box from my bag. Inside was something I couldn't afford to give Emily on the day we vowed to marry. I've lived an ordinary life, much like my name suggests. A regular office worker at a general company. My salary was average, and as a young man, it was all I could do to make ends meet. That's why, even at such an important moment as my proposal, I couldn't afford to buy Emily a ring, and the roses were the best I could do. But still, she chose me. I don't need such things to be with you, she said with gentle words, staying with me all these years. Yet, it always remained a regret for me. Perhaps she did want a ring in her heart. Every girl dreams of wearing that glittering symbol. So, for our 30th wedding anniversary, I chose to present her with a ring. I'm sorry for not being able to give this to you sooner. As I opened the box and showed her the ring, Emily looked puzzled. Mr. Johnson, are you giving this to me? Yes, I'm truly sorry for the delay. Is that so? She seemed to not fully understand what I was saying. Emily gazed at the ring, tilting her head slightly. It's beautiful. I took the ring out of the black box and slid it onto a ring finger. Then, Emily raised her hand, admiring the ring with a mesmerized look. Emily. What is it? She turned her happy face towards me as I called her name. I took out something else from my bag and presented it to her. It was a single rose. I might not be able to prepare a grand gesture like 100 roses anymore, but this one carried all my feelings. I thought the rose might seem underwhelming after the ring. Feeling a bit sheepish, I watched as Emily's eyes widened in surprise. Thank you, Henry. I've never received such a happy present, she said. I was startled when she called me by my first name. Since her illness, she had always referred to me by my last name. Emily looked at me steadily and gently grasped my hand. You even prepared a ring for me. Such an expensive item. It must have been hard, right? But you know, I'm happy just being by your side, just being with you, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. Seeing her like that made me tear up too. I really can't match up to you, Emily. As I smiled softly, we both realized our tears were falling at the same time, and we ended up chuckling together. 30 years ago, I reserved a restaurant in this hotel, known for its garden views, despite having little money. I wanted to stay in this Aurora room but could only afford the restaurant. Though I couldn't afford a ring, I prepared 100 roses instead. I want to surprise her after dinner, I said. Understood. What a lovely surprise. The staff had agreed to my whims, and the day before, I had secretly left the 100 roses at the hotel. Looking back, they were very kind to a mere diner like me. It was an arranged marriage, and at that time, we had only met a month ago. But I was desperate to see Emily's happy face. She probably doesn't remember any of it now. Yet, she reacted to the proposal with the same words and expression as back then. I love you, Henry. I was so glad we could be here today, together in this place. The next morning, we strolled slowly down the hotel's corridor, wrapped in birdsong and sunrise. Mr. Johnson, it was so much fun. This will be a wonderful memory. She was smiling like a child as we walked side by side. Mr. Blue, the manager, greeted us warmly at the reception. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. After exchanging greetings and processing our checkout, Mr. Blue suddenly paused. Oh, I heard Mr. Blue make a sound as if he had just realized something. Wondering what it was, I noticed him deepening his smile. Such a beautiful ring, and a lovely flower, he said. Those words were directed at Emily, who was standing beside me. Following Mr. Blue's gaze, I saw she was holding a single rose, treasured in her hand. You're the couple from the rose bouquet incident, aren't you? No way. I was surprised to hear a familiar term, and Mr. Blue quietly nodded in confirmation. 30 years ago, you both visited our restaurant, right? I was the one who took care of the 100 roses for you. Back then, I was too desperate to pay attention to my surroundings. But it seems Mr. Blue remembered us. It was my very first task when I started working here, so I remember it well. I was so happy to see such a lovely couple formed in this hotel, he said with a joyful voice. Hearing him speak, I felt a deep sense of emotion, realizing that someone else held the memory of that day. Thank you for a wonderful time. I will definitely come here again with my wife. I gripped the warm hand beside me and thanked him. Yes, we eagerly await your return. With Mr. Blue's voice bidding us farewell, we started walking away. I decided to cherish both the new sparkle on her left hand and her smiling face as we held hands, regardless of what the future may hold.